Can you tell me who you are and how you're using open source in your school? Because you're one of the few school users I've been meeting at this exhibition.
Hi, I'm Sara Hammick. I'm from St Osmunds Middle School in Dorset, and we're using open source in a range of ways. The main change we made was about 5 years ago. We swapped over from Microsoft Office to OpenOffice. We also have integrated into our ICT curriculum the use of Scratch programming language. So that is actually our main control learning language, starting off in Year 6. We, in addition to that, we have a Moodle. We have an open source virtual learning environment, which costs us very little, and it's basically the cost of hosting. And we've found a tremendous tool to engage the students, to give them the ability to interact with each other, and to provide very much like so personalised learning.
So, are you part of the SLT?
I'm not part of the SLT.
So how did you get buy-in from the SLT and how did you get it through to staff?
Okay. Buy-in from the SLT was easy, financial. They listen to numbers. If you can say, look, we can do the same job, but this much cheaper, they'll do it. Buying into staff was a slower and longer process. The kids loved it, and that really helps. When the staff see how well the children take to it, then they put in the extra effort to do that a little bit more. The other thing is that around us, use of open source has been growing. So I could point to businesses in the local community who were using open source products. And also major things like the whole of Russian education system going away from Microsoft to OpenOffice. Somebody there must have looked into it. So being able to point to examples of other people using it really helped me convince the staff it was the right way to go.
So what are your plans for the future? How are you going to sort of evolve it?
But what we want to do is give the students as much access as possible to these wonderful tools that we've got, both in our virtual learning environment, our Moodle, and obviously our internal resources. So we want to put as many netbooks into the school system as we can, so that instead of having a line of dictionaries at the back of the class, you've got a line of netbooks, and just as when you need to look up a word, you go and get it, when the students feel it's appropriate to use IT, they can use a netbook, make those decisions for themselves. And we're using Linux netbooks rather than Microsoft Windows netbooks, because we don't need to be connected to a network. As long as you can connect to the internet, we can connect to our virtual learning environment, which is Moodle, open source, and you have all the tools that you need.
Can you tell us a bit about your school and the catchment area and some of the support issues?
We've got a 650 or so number of students. We're a middle school, so
which is unusual, yes.
Yeah, the last 2 years of primary and then Key Stage 3. We've got a mixture of catchment areas, most people do. We've got some very well-off, well-to-do families, but we've also got some key postcodes that have a lot of difficulty, mostly difficulty not so much engaging the children, but engaging the parents to be involved in the education. In terms of support, we're quite lucky. We have our own on-site technician who knew nothing about open source before I came along saying, hey Dave, have a look at this, try this. Now I've been lucky enough that he will put time into exploring and developing and finding out, and he's been excited because that's been an aspect of his role that he feels will stand him in good stead for future employment if he needs to move on. It's a performance management issue really. If he's just doing the same things with Microsoft, then he hasn't learned anything to his skill set. If he can go elsewhere and say, I can do open source, he's got a lot more to offer.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you.